Hi,
Hi.
welcome back. So, Sunday has just come out and he makes many characters that weren't that good after they got power crept a lot better than they were. Of course, those are Honkai, Jing Liu, and Jing Yuan, among a couple others. The remains are definitely happy to see them doing great again, but there's a pretty big problem when it comes to Sunday and any characters like him that may come in the future. It's not very healthy for the meta of Star Rail, and to make older characters relevant again, the devs have to do something different. So in this video we're going to discuss why indirect buffs aren't a good thing overall. Before we start, you should like, comment, and subscribe for more content like this in the future, and join the Express Shrine Discord server. It's a fun community, you should join. Finally, I'm trying to reach 2,500 subs before the end of the year, so I'm uploading one video per day for the whole month of December. If you'd like to see any certain video idea, then tell me in the comments. Now let's get on to it. We all know that Jing Yuan has to be one of the most indirectly buffed characters in the game. He was really disappointing to most players when he first came out, and he only got worse as the game went on. Even though because of his certain archetype, a follow-up focused summon unit, he got many indirect buffs through characters and relic sets that focus on these mechanics. Those are of course the various FU8 relic sets like Duran and Ash Blazing Grand Duke, and two of the best units in the whole game currently, Robin and Sunday. In Jing Yuan's current best team, along with those two in Huo, he is definitely a pretty good DPS. He could land himself a number 7 spot overall. He is still definitely outperformed by the top 4 Acheron, Facia, Firefly, and Rappa, and is still outperformed by Yunli and Boothill. Even though some Jing Yuan mains really want him to be the best, he really isn't. As for Jing Liu and Dan Hong then swiftly after 2.0, they became pretty useless as they got less and less enemies that they're good matchups against, as well as enemies getting a lot more HP because of new powerful characters releasing like Acheron and eventually Fei Xiao. Even with, at the time, powerful units like Sparkle, Dan Hong and Jing Liu were pretty low, and now with Sunday they're definitely a lot stronger. Depending on the matchup they could be better than Jing Yuan, but the difference between those three is probably negligible. Now those three characters have a few things in common. They are all characters that used to be weak in the meta until Sunday came out. After he did, they became pretty strong again, but still nowhere near the best. None of them are going to be in the top 5 DPS list yet, and they're not going to be unless something huge has changed. In fact, they're only going to get weaker and weaker from now on. When Amphodius finally comes out in 42 days, Aglaia is coming out, and then after her, Castoris is coming out. Right now, Aglaia isn't super strong and is definitely not as good as Acheron and Fei Xiao, but he is still incredibly powerful, and definitely much stronger than Jing Yuan, and his two other quintet buddies. They are already relevant again, just one update later, and they'll become even more irrelevant once more Remembrance units comes out. Aglaia is most likely going to be put on the standard banner, but we don't have any confirmation of that, just speculation. If and when that happens, then there will be absolutely zero reason to get any of Dan Hong, Jing Liu, and Jing Yuan, let alone weaker characters like Zila and Blade on any reruns unless they're heavily reworked or directly buffed. The problem is that Sunday not only buffs these older characters, but he also buffs newer characters that already have an advantage over the older ones a lot more powerfully. Sure, these three are a lot more powerful now, but they're nowhere near the best, and again, they're going to be even farther away from the best when 3.0 and the updates that follow come out. What would be the best case scenario for those who are against the insane curve of power creep currently happening in Star Rail is most DPS characters would more or less be equal. The main differences between them being which path they follow, which determines how many enemies they hit, the mechanics they take advantage of, which determines the kind of support you'd need to pull them to make them powerful, and finally what elements they are, which determines which enemies they're best against. By indirectly buffing older characters with new 5-star harmony units like Sunday, then while they'll seem powerful at first, as soon as you realize that they're still so much weaker than a new unit, you'll realize they're still not part of the meta. Now, I'm not saying every DPS needs to be the most powerful DPS, that's kinda ridiculous. There should be a clear answer as to who is the best. What should be the case is that every DPS can still be used effectively in the endgame modes they're good in, as long as the enemies match their types, and the endgame cycle buffs fit their respective kits. Right now, the enemies have so much HP in the MOC that even the Banana Academics Dino boss, who's weak to both imaginary ice and even lightning, is still incredibly difficult to defeat with these units, especially without Sunday. Jing Yuan could probably still defeat it pretty quickly, but only because of Sunday, and if we somehow were able to use Aglaia against the Dino boss, then she'd be a lot more powerful than Jing Yuan. Even then, Acheron is a lot stronger against it than Jing Yuan, especially because she can still deal reasonable damage to the puppets of the boss that aren't weak to lightning, because of her negative 20% resistance she applies on enemies during her burst. So, now we know that these three are still going to be pretty weak after Amphodius even with Sunday, how do we actually buff them up? Without making new units more powerful, how do we make them compared to new DPS units without being outperformed in every single scenario? Quite easily and simply buff up their kits and multipliers, although Weverse is probably not going to do that. The only time they ever buffed a kit was Zhongli, and that was only because of insane community backlash. However, right now the only people talking about power creep are smaller content creators like me, and like those in the Expression and Discord server, which you should check out. We don't have any large enough voice to bring about change, and any small part of the community that is also discussing power creep doesn't either. Bigger CCs also don't care about discussing power creep. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I haven't seen a single content creator with more than like 50k subs, for example, discussing the insane power creep curve and HP inflation happening in the game right now. Without those bigger CCs discussing this, characters are not going to be buffed. Instead, what's more reasonable is that they introduce a new type of equipment that buffs up older units in some way, either making their kits stronger by making any stack system they have stronger, or giving them much higher multipliers. Each one of these theoretical special relic sets would each be for a specific character and not a group of them. I really cannot find another way to make these characters better without making other characters too OP. This is basically the problem with indirect buffs. Sure, it might make one or two older characters stronger, but just because it takes advantage of one or two mechanics or even every mechanic of an older character's kit, the new feature, whether it be a light cone or a relic set or a character, is made for a specific new character or a specific group of new characters in the case of Sunday, which means that no matter how good it makes the older characters again, they still won't be as good as the new ones. So again, instead of praising Sunday for buffing up our older units, even though we probably won't get this at all, we need to continue speaking up about this, so we have to get the attention of much bigger CCs, or maybe get the attention of the dev team somehow. And that's it. Thank you so much for watching. Like, comment, and subscribe for more content like this in the future, and join the Expression and Discord server, where you'll find updates and discussions about Honkai Star Rail. Anyways, I will see you next time.